Hey guys, Video Psych here. I know I don't have my glasses on right now. I feel a bit weird at the moment since I just took them off, but otherwise, yep, here I am. I can still see pretty, I'd say, kind of well out them. I'm just nearsighted is all. But let's see, first comment here. And at one point I was talking about, you know, that whole, escorting hooker thing. And of course, this guy comments, dude, you can get an escort anywhere. And of course, commented back to him, you can't get an escort. You can't, oh, excuse me. You can't get escorts anywhere, yes, since technically an escort is someone you pay for company. However, many hookers try to use the escort name. And so the thing is, it's actually still illegal in most areas of the US to pay somebody for sex if that's all that you're paying for. But if you're paying for their time, that's okay. Now, you can also actually have sex with escorts, but the thing about escorts is that you don't just have sex with them, is the thing. But moving on from that. And no, I've never hired a hooker or escort before. But, of course, I've had thoughts about doing it, but I've never actually done it. I've never really felt I should have to do it at the moment, or have had just other things, to do and pay for. Because God knows that escorts and hookers can get quite expensive. But moving on from that. Guy puts, hey bro, are you able to kiss your love doll? Is it safe? And I just said, yes, it is. And he says, thanks, man. I should have been more specific. I meant to say TPE love dolls. Thanks all the same. If it's either a silicone or TPE or fabric love doll, it's just fine. Just don't be rough. That's all. And the reason why I say that is because there actually was this one time I actually met somebody on the internet and they were asking me about the teddy babes and about, the lips wearing off and which ones that I should recommend to him. And I'm just like, wait, what? Because I actually just happened to have a teddy babe at the time. And I'm just like, yeah, her lips have never worn off for me. And he's like, well, because I've been through two of them. And I'm just like, well, I'm not sure what you're doing when you're kissing your love dolls, but the lips on these things shouldn't be wearing off like that. And it was kind of an interesting conversation at the time, but I'll just kind of drop it there and go with the comments here. Yeah, man, it was really interesting. So moving on to the next comment here. Do you know if Blue sex dolls is legit? Now, this is one that I've answered today because I didn't really have the time to answer it like a couple weeks ago when I first saw this comment. I said, hi there, sorry for the late reply. I've been pretty busy lately. I looked into them, and although their site is very pretty looking, I looked at the real reviews, and it's not looking good, as well as some of the comments talking about paying the extra fee to get it faster, and also them getting the package with the doll broken and not even what they ordered. And so I seriously wouldn't trust it. And of course, this is the kind of thing that I tend to see when I get mixed reviews on a Love Doll sites, which is why I've always said if you ever see mixed reviews for a Love Doll site, but you don't see any comments below it, I just wouldn't really trust it. This person asked me, what is the point of taking the Love Doll apart? What are you going to do with the skeleton? I said, you guys might want to start looking at the date of when this video was uploaded before asking me what I'm going to do with it, because it's long gone now. You aren't the first to ask me that, even though it's been over a year now that I dismantled my TPE Love Doll. But I did it so, let's say if somebody were to find it, they won't just mistaken it for a dead body, and it will come back to me somehow. Although it doesn't come back to the owner often, there's been plenty of stories recently of people getting freaked out when they find one and it's a person and they think it's a person at first glance. They get the emergency authorities and everything, and then they're like, "Oh shit, wait, it's just a love doll." Because sometimes, I mean, some of these people are just throwing them out in the middle of nowhere, on the street, next to a road somewhere, in a park. I mean, just about anywhere. And the people are mistaking them for dead bodies at first, and it just kind of creates a bit of chaos. And I'm not going to do something like that. Also, one thing, if you're also going to throw out your love doll, go to the dump and toss it out. Because, I mean, you probably don't want your love doll sitting out on the front of your lawn with your neighbor seeing it. Just an FYI. But moving on from that. And this is on my video on why I don't get love dolls on eBay, Amazon, etc. This guy asked or said, make sure to read all the text and reviews. I did notice some ads on eBay that said if they were out of a doll, they could substitute any other one they wanted, basically said right in their ad. They would bait and switch. I wouldn't mind a cheap counterfeit as long as it wasn't bad material and looks not so bad. And make sure to check the return policy. And I said to him, the sad truth is, even if it states there's a return policy, you're only able to return it if you haven't touched it or it's came in broken somehow. But sometimes even when they send you the product and you just said, oh, I changed my mind, I haven't touched it or anything, I want to send it back and get my money back. Well, the thing is, sometimes you might still not get your, money back because they paid to make the material, they paid the workers to make that doll. And so unless the doll actually somehow came to you, like, let's say, snapped in half or something, there's actually a fair chance that you might not get your money back, just so you know. And I have actually heard this happen to at least a couple of people where they got the doll, they didn't even touch it, and they simply changed their mind, but they couldn't get their money back. So I would just make you guys aware of that, because it has happened before. And I also said, and if the place is from China, especially, I wouldn't trust it at all. And no legit brands work for eBay, by the way. None of the legit brands work for Amazon or eBay. If you really want to just get these dolls, like, legitimately, I would just go to the site, just straight up. I wouldn't always go to the factories because some of the main factories are in China, although sometimes they will have a warehouse in the US or Europe. And so I would actually buy from those. Do not, in most cases, go directly to the company to get the doll, because sometimes if they are in a different country, the import laws can be very different and that you can get screwed over, just so you know. But moving on from that. It says, hi, I'm hoping you might be able to help me. I recently bought a doll with detachable legs, but it seems like they welded one of the leg connectors on the wrong rotation. The right leg is about 45 degrees compared to the left, with the knees kept straight. Is it possible to twist the whole leg at the hip joint to somewhat correct this? Question mark. Would probably be a lot easier to try with a bare skeleton. Many thanks. I said, actually, I know what you're talking about, but I've never had a doll like that yet, with the detachable, legs and arms and such. I hope it doesn't break if you try to adjust it or move it or, bend it in a certain direction. So, I mean, if I seriously don't know something, I will seriously just be upfront and say, I don't know. And this isn't the kind of information that you would likely be able to find on the internet. His only chance would be to contact somebody else who has also had a doll like this somehow. So I wish him the best of luck. Or you can maybe also ask the manufacturer because I don't know. But anyway, moving on from that. This person states, I am under 30 years old, had a few relationships with women, bought the love doll. After that, I agree that I've lost less control, but from another hand, my experiences with normal relationships learn that the relationships can be broken, unexpected, suddenly. I am really deep frustrated about that. I'm not saying that I will never try to get a real relationship with women. I will do, but the doll gives another kind of safe ground experience without this feeling that the relationship will for 100% broken, but you don't know the day, the hour, etc. And I say to him, for some reason, but also sometimes I think it's natural for people to think a relationship is supposed to be forever, but like most things, it won't last forever. And this is what they need to teach people so when it does happen, they don't feel as down when it does happen and can better, more easily move on to the next thing, next relationship, next job, whatever. And this is the same person. He says the perception that love dolls owners must be old, unattractive losers seems to be common. Yes, it's a stereotype. It's not true. But any form that characteristics not aligned with who I am, I have sublimated hard to achieve the average woman aesthetic view. I'm an artist too, looking forward for looking for ideal beauty. The doll gives that impression. Maybe I'm emotionally cold, but calling a person who buys the doll loser is like calling, for example, every homosexual person a loser. From another hand can't be loser, especially in my poor country person who has cash enough to buy it. And I basically understand what he's trying to say, and I've even stated before, just like the people that buy a real doll, but then they're still called losers. And it's just like, man, you know how much money this shit costs. I mean, especially if you're buying multiple of these things, like these things aren't exactly cheap. And it's basically like buying a car. And recently enough, in the past couple of years, you've actually been able to get insurance for some, depending on what company, you're actually are able to get insurance for your love doll. Like if you get a real doll, you are actually able to cover your real doll with insurance now, actually. It's not perfect, but you are able to do it now. And, especially with these being so expensive and it could break at any point, you never know what's going to happen. I would probably recommend it to some extent, but just so you know, the coverage isn't really all that perfect yet. So we'll see what happens in the next 10 or so years with that. But moving on from that, I said back to him, it's from people that just like to bully and get under people's skin is the thing. I've learned to just be at peace and be like, whatever, have fun worrying about your ridiculous BS while I go over here, put my legs up and have a drink and have fun while you guys are just stressing over nothing. And that's the thing, since especially I've grown up and experienced what I've experienced, I've just learned to be at peace with pretty much everything. And I could even talk about things that, would even make them uncomfortable. Like, let's say I could talk about something that Jeffrey Dahmer did and the reason why he did it and blah, blah. And they might get uncomfortable and say shit like, oh, you're coming up with reasons why he did it, like you're justifying it. It's like, no, I'm not saying like I'm justifying what Jeffrey Dahmer did. Even Jeffrey Dahmer didn't justify what Jeffrey Dahmer did. I mean, even he didn't justify what he was doing. He knew what he was doing was bad. And even quoted as saying that he deserved to be in prison, etc. But the thing is, it's just some people are just very different. They have very weird kinks, and eventually, sometimes they can't hold themselves back, and it just happens sometimes. Of course, not saying that's a good thing to do. That shouldn't be, happening. 1 second. God damn updates. People really shouldn't be doing that, but it just happens, and that's just a reality, and we can't stop it. Just like we, some of the people that go to places to, let's say, kill a bunch of people out the workplace because they're just pissed off. I mean, anybody could do this. They could get pissed off or decide that they, for just one reason or another, want to kill people at their workplace. And that's something you can't stop. And it happens. I don't like it, but it happens. So to speak. But anyway, moving on from that. But yeah, I just wouldn't really worry about what, people say to me. I just don't really care. And every now and then I'll get a snarky little comment and I'll delete it. And most of the time I won't talk about it on my channel and the reason is because I just don't think that people like that deserve attention. I understand that an easy way to get attention is by pissing people off, but it's also not really something that you should be doing all the time. And it is because it gives off a negative energy to people throughout who watch the content, and that's not really a good thing to do. Yeah, and it's not the only way to get attention anyway. There's plenty of ways to get attention. You don't have to always just be pissing people off to get their attention, and do something that matters. But moving on from that, so I will see you guys in the next video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.